At 3 years old, Darby Allin zip-tied his own neck until it turned purple. At 5, he front flipped off a piano into bare concrete. He survived being launched down concrete stairs, torn through glass panels, and climbing Mount Everest, all while breaking just 3 bones. But his recent interview on ESPN should stop you cold. He admitted that if the worst thing that ever happens to him is dying, so be it. He's used up all 9 lives and he doesn't care what comes next. This isn't an act for the camera. It's genuine philosophy. But here's the uncountable truth. Wrestling is moving in the exact opposite direction. Concussion lawsuits, corporate wellness, and strict safety rules are banning the very moves that made him famous. Darby Allin isn't just a daredevil. He is officially the last of a dying breed, not because nobody else has his talent, but because the industry is actively changing to ensure no one like him ever happens again. Here's why corporate wrestling is trying to kill the last true outlaw. Before we go further, let's define the word properly. A daredevil wrestler is not just someone who does high spots. Plenty of wrestlers throughout history have done dives of ropes and ladders. A true daredevil is someone whose entire identity is built around the audience generally not knowing if they are going to be okay. The tension is not whether the move will look good. The tension is whether the human being doing it survives the attempt. Darby Allin's real name is Samuel Rash. He took the name Darby Allin as a tribute to 2 real people. Darby Crash, a frontman of the punk band The Germs, and G.G. Allin, a punk icon. Both of these men were daredevil musical personas who died of drug overdose. That is the foundation of the character, not the costume, a worldview borrowed from real people who lived fast and paid for it. His half-painted face is a tribute to a childhood car crash that took his uncle's life. He has said that half of him feels dead inside, and that he lives with 1 foot already on the grave. When fans chant, please don't die during his matches, and they generally do, that is the entire point of the character working exactly how it's designed. That level of psychological commitment to a danger as an identity is what separates a true daredevil from the wrestler who simply does dangerous moves. Now let's look at the actual records because the moments alone do not capture how consistent this has been. In his first match for AEW against Cody Rhodes at Fighter Fest, Allin attempted his coffin drop and completely missed it, landing on the ring apron instead of the opponent. Most wrestlers would have scaled the move back after a debut like that. Allin built his entire AEW career on doubling down. He has taken finishes from Jon Moxley and Brian Cage off the top rope, a position whose moves were never designed to be delivered from. At AEW Revolution, during Sting's retirement match, Allin fell off and led the match to a pane of glass. In a Texas Tornado match against Powerhouse Hobbs and Konosuke Takeshita, he was thrown across the ring in a spot he later admitted nearly broke his neck. He told KSDK directly that he saw an arch in the city they were in and wanted to jump off it, which was part of what led to the dangerous sequence. At AEW Revolution against Clark Connors, Allin took a spear off an apron to the floor in a sequence that had fans immediately questioning how he walked away from it. And his reason for agreeing to the specific spots was not personal glory. He said Connors was new to AEW and it was his first pay-per-view, so he wanted to help him make an impact because Allin remembered what it felt like wanting the same moment himself. That detail matters more than people realize. That daredevil reputation is not about just Darby Allin trying to get himself over. It has become a tool that he uses to elevate other people, accepting personal risk to create someone else's career-making moment. That is a rare kind of generosity in an industry that often rewards self-interest. Now, here's where this video turns from admiration to genuine concern, because the wrestling industry around Darby Allin has spent the last 2 decades systematically moving away from everything his style represents. This did not happen by accident, it happened because the consequences became impossible to ignore. In 2007, Chris Benoit became the first of what is now 6 former professional wrestlers diagnosed with chronic traumatic encephalopathy after his death. The tragedy reshaped how the entire industry thinks about head trauma. In July 2016, more than 50 wrestlers filed lawsuits against WWE, alleging the company had recklessly endangered performers and concealed the dangers of head injuries. Researchers have documented the mortality rates for wrestlers aged 25 to 49 that are 4.5 times higher than the general population. The Undertaker, a man who built his career on physical extremity, he said openly that the business needed to get smarter, not softer, when it comes to protecting its performers. He said that when the referee draws the X sign now, the match stops and the athletes get treated properly. and that adjusting to that reality was hard for his generation to accept. AEW, the company that built its entire identity on edgier, more dangerous wrestling than WWE, has not been immune to the shift either. Inside reports from sources revealed that AEW issued a safety document banning specific dangerous moves, including unprotected chest shots on the head, blind turnbuckle moves, and unapproved bumps into the apron, ringside area, tables, and ladders without prior clearance. When the news broke, fans on social media immediately reacted with comments like AEW is becoming WWE light and questioning what it meant for a wrestler like John Moxley, whose entire career has been built around similar extremities. That reaction tells you everything about the cultural movement we are in. The industry is being forced to choose between protecting its performance long term and continuing to produce the kind of spectacle that builds stars like Darby Allin in the first place. And increasingly, the industry is choosing protection for very good reason. Here's a part of this conversation that makes Darby Allin's existence so strange and so significant. He is operating at the highest level of mainstream wrestling, doing things that the rest of the industry is actively writing policy documents to prevent. Ric Flair himself, a man who lived an extreme lifestyle for decades, personally told Allin to slow down and exercise caution. Allin has said he takes his cognitive health seriously, working with DDP and various recovery technologies, specifically to protect his brain given the style he refuses to abandon. That is a genuinely strange position to be in. A performer who is simultaneously one of the most reckless in-ring artists in modern wrestling and someone actively trying to manage the long-term cost of that recklessness. But here's an uncountable truth underneath all of that. You cannot fully manage the cost of what Darby Allin does. Nobody can. The very fact that the industry around him is writing rules against the exact moves he is known for tells you that the system has concluded his style is not sustainable for the generation of performers. Wrestling promotions are not going to keep building business models around the hope that a wrestler can survive what Darby Allin survives. They learn the hard way, through lawsuits, through CTE diagnosis, through mortality data nobody wants to look at directly, that betting an entire roster's health on daredevil stunts eventually produces tragedy. So the next generation of wrestlers coming up through AEW system and WWE system are being trained and managed inside a framework specifically built to prevent the next Darby Allin from emerging. Not because promoters don't want exciting matches, but because the cost of producing them in human terms that becomes too well documented to ignore. I'm not going to sit here and argue that wrestling should go back to the days of unprotected chest shots and uncontrolled wrist. The lawsuits were real, the CTA diagnoses were real, the mortality numbers are real. Protecting performers long term is a right call, even when it costs the product some of its old danger. But something genuine is being lost in this transition, and it's worth naming honestly. Darby Allin's appeal has never been about spectacle or of a move landing cleanly. It has been about the audience feeling genuine uncertainty about whether a human being is going to be okay. That specific feeling, the one that produces please don't die chants in real time, cannot be manufactured through the choreography or camera work. It only exists when the performer is willing to put something real on the line. As wrestling becomes safer, and it should become safer, that specific feeling becomes rarer. Future stars will be built through career work, through storytelling, through psychology, through everything that does not require risking a broken neck for a crowd reaction. That is a correct direction for the industry to move in. But it does mean that what Darby Allin represents, a performer whose entire identity is built on tempting fate in front of a live audience, may not have a true successor. Not because nobody else is brave enough, but because the system itself has decided it can no longer afford to produce one. Darby Allin is not just a wrestler with a unique style. He may be the last man standing from an era of wrestling that the industry has consciously decided to leave behind.